Hey there, everybody. This is Derek, and this is CIS 152 Web Design 1, and we're going to be talking about tables today. One of the things that we're going to be using tables for is to organize informations like menus or table of contents, and we're going to be looking at how tables are structured using HTML5 and CSS. And we're going to do some experiments. Hopefully I'm going to experiment, and I expect you to experiment just to kind of get a better idea of what the tags mean and how the CSS all works together. Now we're going to be going to the W3 schools and looking at their web pages, and I'm going to be following the links. But when you go to W3 schools, I'm going to be going to the table element, and we're going to be looking at these things. So one of the things that you're going to want to be understanding is that as we are looking at the tags, we always are going to be thinking about the opening and the closing tags just to encapsulate everything that's going to go on inside. We're going to break down the different elements that are inside the tag, what they are, and what they mean, and how you read this and begin to formulate in your mind what it is that you're going to look at when you actually see it as it's rendered. Now I'm working in my text editor Aptana, and I'm going to show you what I have basically as a setup here. And this is just a very basic setup, and this doesn't necessarily mean this is how your project homework is going to be laid out. This is just what I have, so you can kind of see what I've got. Got the core stuff here. I've got my doc type. I've got my HTML, English. Obviously, when you click on, I can define. I can see where they end. There's the closing container tag. I've got a head region. This is where it ends. This is where it begins. In that, I have all of my normal content. I get my basic overview code from my new template when I'm working in Aptana. If I want to add a new page, let's say I'm working in my demos folder and I want to add a new page to that, I can select demos, I can right click, and I can go to new from template, and I can choose HTML, and I can choose an HTML5 template, and that gives me a very simple, we'll just call it new file. It gives me a very simple new file page with a lot of pre-written content in it. Then I go back and I change it, but that just kind of gives me some stuff. I may or may not use this, and I'll need to modify it as needed. So I kind of start with that. It's a very simple, quick way to kind of lay out some of your content, but I always then go back and add my information, my descriptions, what it is I'm going to be doing, make the author. Then I have to set up my style sheets. I'll be working with W3 Schools CSS, so I need a link to that. I'm going to be writing my own CSS, so I have a link to that. This is to my tables. So here's my tables style sheet that I've created and attached, and here is my tables demo, and this is just my HTML for my actual project, page. I don't actually need that. So I'll be working here between these two for this lesson, and when you write your own code, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to have your style sheet. You're going to have your style sheet. And I've added just the basics. I added body. I added my footer, so my footer text is kind of just minimized and it's not glaring in your face. Because for this demo, I don't want it to be an object that you're looking at necessarily. And I've made a couple classes to stylize some of my sections. When I go here, I'll look at my tables demo. This is what it's going to look like when it's rendered. I have my header, my H1, I have my H4s, which contain nothing other than text, and then I have a tiny little copyright in my footer, which is not the source of really anything that I want people to be staring at. So this is where the focus is here. I'm using HTML. I'm at W3 Schools. I'm looking at tags and the table tag, and we're just going to break these things down and look at this. For this project, we're going to be looking at the table element, which is the link that I have, and in that we're going to look at the header. What is a header? What is a row? What is a cell? We'll look at the table header groups. That's called table head group, table body group, and table footer group. We'll look at how to add captions. We'll look at if we want cells that one cell might be the size of 2 cells. Maybe 1 cell is equal to 3 cells, something like that. We'll look at how we do that. And then we'll look at how we style some of the cells so that we get maybe alternating rows or alternating columns, and we'll look at these different groups. So that's what we're going to be doing in this series of videos, and from there you're going to be creating your version. By taking that information, you're going to create a section of a web page that is showing this content. So you're going to lay out your own table using the information that you've looked at, and you're going to make out a table that looks like this using that information. And then from there you'll be able to pretty well make tables the way that you want. So as you are doing this, hopefully you'll be thinking about, okay, when I look at a page, I'm breaking it down in my mind. Okay, maybe what is this section? How would I style this? Is it a header? Or is it H1? Is it H4? You know, is this in a row? And just be breaking these things down. Is this a paragraph? Is this a unordered list? And when you look at a page, you'll be thinking about that. You know, because when you create this, you're going to be matching these colors. You're going to be matching the browns, matching the fonts, matching, you know, want it to look as close as possible. Matching the headings, the boldings, and the organization. Same with this. Okay, so those are the things that you're going to be responsible for doing. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, like recipe, do this, do that. I want you to be able to look at it, break it down in your mind, find the closest solution that matches. You know, look at this. Is this a sans serif or is it serif fonts? What is this color of green? Is it green? Is it blue? Is it yellow? So you're going to be sampling these colors and figuring out how to do that. You can actually take this image, right click on it, you can copy the image address, and you can then put that and sample those colors and get hexadecimal values for each one of these colors, so you can actually have the exact color for all these things. These are things that you have to be able to do without being told specifically, go to this website, do this. You got to build those skills up so that you're thinking about it in your mind ahead of time, and that you're able to do it on your own without being explicitly told how to do every single thing. So I want you to really be able to look at something, break it down in your mind, break it down into its core parts, get all the ingredients that you need to make this web page, and the last thing you do is go in and just make the web page. And so it's all the research and the pre-production, if you will, of the process that'll make doing the process much faster and more efficient, instead of trying to learn what you're doing and do what you're supposed to do all at the same time. So that's why we're going to break down these core ideas and discuss what it is that they mean, so that you build up a vocabulary of these sort of things. You know, oh, that's a header, that's a row, and you're automatically thinking about them all as you're going along, and you can organize it in your head and then just basically deliver that content as you go along much more easily. So we're going to be looking at the basic table attributes. So when you start to create a table, you simply define your opening and your closing tab. As a table, you have what's called rows. So you have in each table is made up of a row. You have your opening row tab and your closing row tab. And then every row is broken down into cells. A TH breaks is a row that's containing what's called headers. And so this is going to be the first row, and this first row is going to contain the header information, which would be like your bolded content, which would put things into what you would maybe consider your categories. So this entire column would be the month column. This entire column would be the savings column. And then you have the second row begins filling in the actual data. You have the cell in this, the first cell under the column of month is going to be January. The second cell is in the column of savings. So let's look at this and see what it looks like. So when you build your code, you're going to be building out, we're not going to worry about the styles yet, but we're going to be looking at the actual body and the table. So here is what it looks like. You have your table. Inside your table you have your first row. I'm going to separate these out so you can kind of see it. And now what's a good idea is to just, I always like to just name it. ID equals row 1. Okay? Oops, put that in quotes. Okay? I'm going to copy and paste that. Control copy, and I'm going to say this is row 1, and this is the beginning of row 2. Now row 1 is unique because row 1 has the TH or the header content. Okay? And if I go over here and look at this as it's been rendered, I have the header region automatically has the H or automatically has bolding, like if it was an H4 or something like that, or a heading with a boldness. Then you have the first row under the header. So here's the first row. These are the headers. Then here's row 2. Okay. And then this is row 3. And you can see there's February. So row 1, which is defined as a header. Row 2, which is this row. And row 3. Okay. So let's just mess around with some of this stuff for a few minutes. We've got row 1, row 2, and then we can say row 3, control. And I can, what I love about being able to work with this W3 Schools content is that we can experiment right here in our browser and just kind of get a feel for what's going on. We can take this and we can put it in our table and we can experiment it there as well, but this is kind of a quick and easy way to do it. So let's say I run this. Nothing changes because I've really just given this some IDs. But what that allows me to do is that allows me to change some elements if I want to. But for now, let's just see if we can do a little experimenting here. So we've got our style section. I'm just going to piece this out a little bit. Give myself a little room. So here's my style. If I went back and I said, okay, row 1, and if I changed row 1, remember row 1 is going to be associated with the header code here. Okay, so let's say we want row 1 to have a background color, and let's just start with the extreme red. So I have associated row 1 with the color now. Alright, let's say instead we want to make it black and the color of the font white. So I could either say white or I could do the hexadecimal values. If I wanted to do the hexadecimal values, it would be hashtag 000 and hashtag FFF. Gives me the same thing. Now, one of the things that we want to do is the table. I'm going to change this. for now. Hold on.